On behalf of the entire community, we appreciate your interest in participating and sharing with us and for having accepted our invitation. We are sure that everything you will share today with us will be a great value to all the design teams in Latam. And as you know, Patrizia Bertini is head of Experience Design Operation on Layer. She's Italian and has been working in England for several years. And for us, she's a great reference in our practice, which is why we are greatly value her time and interest collaborating with the Latam community. So welcome, Patrizia. Really excited to start this.
Thank you, Alexandra, and thank you all that joined on a Saturday. So that's super exciting, and I'm really happy that we are having this conversation because, I mean, all the most creating and amazing things I've seen in design and operations comes actually from Latam. So just few words about me. I skipped this slide about me because, well, you have me here, right? So what's the point? But one of the newest takes and mottos that I've embraced is, why join the Navy when you can be a pirate? And I think that DesignOps is pretty much about being a pirate. It's being good at what you do and being in a structure, a boat, and disrupting it. And that's exactly what I've been doing in my career. I have clearly a non-linear career. I started in journalism, accessibility, usability, academic research, and then design operations. Truth is, back in 2000, I tried a career as a designer, but would you ever see anything visual done by me without templates like the slides? You will beg me not to design anything. So it's all about running experiments. And I think that DesignOps is one of the most intriguing and challenging experiments. And the reason why I ended up here is because, you know, especially when you work in research, you put a lot of effort and time in understanding what is happening, the context, framing the problem, and trying to identify the solution. Then you work on the solution and someone will implement it. And by the time that the solution is out in the market, well, you moved on and you deal with something else. And there's such a huge detachment between the user and your work and my work that I just started being more interested in having a user that could just slap me in the face and tell me that, hey, this is absolutely rubbish. This doesn't work straight away. And this is what I love about design operations, because it's all about serving your design team and your organization and having someone that can slap you in the face in any moment and help you to rethink your framing, rethink the problem, and create new hypotheses and new ideas. So that's just in a nutshell a little bit of how did I ended up where I am. Oh yes, I had it. I thought I didn't have it. Okay, well done. Let's move next. I want this to be an interactive session, so please feel free to stop me anytime. I mean, it's a chat, it's Saturday, we are all relaxed and enjoying a pajama style conversation, so let's keep it as it is. So because we are all design operations practitioners, I generally always start with a slide that starts saying what is design, and design is all about how it works, not how it looks. And then a slide that actually takes the definition of operations from the business dictionary, which says operations, it's all about transforming the existent situation, context, and reality to generate value. But you all do that. So my assumption is we can just go straight in the next definition, which is next slide. What is DesignOps? Okay, perfect. Not having the slides in front of me doesn't help. But why do we talk about design operations? It's because there are a lot of interesting stats. These stats are before the pandemic. So they date 2020. So the data is beginning 2020 or 2019 that actually says that 60% of knowledge workers are not doing any design, are not doing their work. They're wasting work. They're not focusing on the role that they have been hired to do. So next slide. This is why when we talk about design operations, we talk about efficiencies, especially because this is a scaring stat coming from another study from the 2020 that says that in the UK, the average worker is working less than 3 hours a day. So think about your day, think about your team, think about what people are doing, and then consider that basically the productive time that everyone has is less than 3 hours a day. So this is where it becomes critical that we start talking and thinking design operations. So let's next slide. And we start with a definition, which is where I thought I was starting, so good point. Design operation is internally focused. When I used to do research for companies, my challenge was, hey, I had all this research to do and stuff to do, but then my stakeholders were very, very distant and my users were very distant. Design operations, it's all about the organization. It's all about the teams. It's all about understanding how things work to make things better. It's all about transforming how the organization works, how people are thinking, and how design delivers value to the business, and how can we make sure that things are actually in the right place and we can operate as we should. So if you go to the next slide, exactly, the efficiencies that we focus on is exactly operational and spending. Operational and spending means we look at different aspects of what is happening in an organization with different lenses, and we go and try to serve 3 types of users. Now, one thing that I really want you to stress out, this is not DesignOps. This is my view on DesignOps. As I said at the beginning, it's a very fluid discipline. There's room for all ideas, all experiments. My background, my personal and working history led me to develop design operations in this way. So the next slides, I'm showing you how I organize design operations, who are the people that I look after and what I care, but everything I'm saying here is based on me, my experience. I don't have the truth. I'm sharing what I've learned, and I'm keen to learn from you if you agree, if you disagree, and how you feel. So when we talk about efficiencies, there are 3 types of users that I think are critical and essential when it comes to, hey, doing something, transforming the organization. The most obvious is, of course, the team, because design operations is all about looking at the design team and making sure that the design team is empowered to do the best job they can, to have the right work-life balance, and to have everything they need to be successful and deliver value to the business. The second type of stakeholder that I look at is the design leader. The design leader is a critical factor, because if you think about design operations, it is nothing new. Every design team in the past needed someone that either on a voluntary base or on a passion-driven base, whatever is the driver, took care of all the organizational and operational aspect of the team. Now, there was then a time when design teams started scaling. And by scaling, it meant that, you know what, we need someone that looks at everything, because the complexity started to grow out. So the design leader is literally the person that focuses on the design vision and strategy, while design operations is the function that empowers that strategy to come to life. So this is how we went from, and I believe everyone that has been around at least 10 years remembers that this function didn't exist, but there was someone in the team doing exactly that. Now that was the design leader who was juggling operations and strategy. Now we got to a point where strategy has a clear function and operations has a strategic function as well, because you need to have a strategy to operationalize. And the third stakeholder is the business. So how do we generate business value? How do we make sure that the organizations is recognizing design as a strategic and critical function within the business, that it's not a cost center? Nothing drives me crazier than hearing that design is a cost center. Design is only a cost center if you don't know what is the value and you are not implementing design processes and best practices in the best and in the right way. So let's start saying, who are DesignOps customers? So who should we looking at to support and serve and help? And all this, next slide, because design operations is all about transforming and optimizing the end-to-end design process so that we can ensure we have quantifiable results, we deliver business value, we deliver on hard metrics, and we make sure that all the three stakeholders we mentioned, the business, the designers, and the design leader, get value out of the relationship and the work that design operation does. So really anything, it's okay, Alex, I'm just going a little bit in all directions, but design operations is about transforming the reality and transforming it in three main domains. So I know other people use different pillars. For me, it's looking at one side, which is the business operations. If you think about managing the design team or the design org as an organization, the role of the design operations leader is not very different from the COO. It's all about negotiating contracts, understanding who are the suppliers, managing the budget, managing the headcount, managing all the end-to-end procurement process, managing the renewal, the onboarding of all the vendors, and looking at tools engagement and return of investment. Are people using it? Are we spending in the right time? How is the workload going? So do we need to start getting budget for more people, more designers? So it's really very business oriented. And if anything, my advice is own this part as much as you can. What I've learned is most of the time, design leaders, the creative minds, the design focus and the design strategy focus are horrible at all this. So they don't understand the budget. They don't understand how they can, create budget and juggle. I mean, you are in Latin American, I'm Italian, so creative business management, it's something we can all kind of relate to. So where you say, hey, I'm moving this budget from one business unit to the other, so I create a pot or I do this. And I always make the joke, because in the past 2 companies I was, within the first 3 months, I saved between $100,000 and $200,000. Not because I'm absolutely a financial genius. I can't do the same with my own savings, unfortunately. But it's more about, you start looking at all the licenses and all the tools. And before you know, you say, hey, we can scratch this tool no one has been using for 6 months. We can change the setup of this tool. We can swap this. I mean, in one company, we were spending for Figma, because everyone wanted an editor seat, just $90,000 for a team of 20. It's just because, hey, I want an editor seat. So Okay, I get my reputation of being absolutely horrible because overnight I send an email saying, unless you're a designer or you send me a decent business justification, your editor seat will be revoked within 24 hours. And this is how you save money. And then you become extremely powerful because when you own the budget and you are a good friend with procurement and finance, that's a really good way to get budget for your team, for the tools, which is the second part of what I see being the critical areas for design operations. Design operations itself. How does the end-to-end work look like for designers, content, researchers, service designers, visual designers? What are the tools? Are the tools integrated? And are best practices integrated within the workflow so that people don't need to think, they know what to do? And how is the design system going? And how are we working with our cross-functional partners? I will be focusing on that on this shortly, but design is inherently a cross-functional discipline. Designers need and have to work with marketing, with product, and with engineering, and they can serve the whole organization. So cross-functional collaboration becomes absolutely critical. And then all the aspect that goes into the designer's life. Do they have the ability to talk to users? So are they empowered to do research, to empathize? Are they empowered to learn? Are they able to do all that they need to do? Are they in the position to be the best designers they can, because there are no obstacles, because we removed everything from their design experience? So are we giving them playbooks? Do they have the knowledge management that they need? And the third part is the fun part. It's all about people, but looking at people in their developing domain. So, hey, how does the career path look like in this company? How can we make sure people are happy because they know how they can grow? How can we grow the team? How can we make sure culture, which is the glue of the team, is taken care? You can't have people working well if they don't trust each other and if they're not happy with each other. So being able to create this sense of community, of sharing, being able to instigate and force collaboration. Sometimes you have to. It's all part, and it's all within managing the changes, managing how we work, managing how the team collaborate, and making sure we hire the right people and we take care of the culture. So these are kind of the three pillars. And I just want to stop here just in case we want to comment, because this is kind of my foundation and I will be building on all this. So, and I will be drinking some water. Any thoughts, anything in the meantime?
Irma, do you want to address your questions?
No? Okay, I think I have three. It's interesting when you talk about the three users, because the way I've organized it so far, I mean, since November, it's only like design team and business, but I didn't make that distinction between design team and design leaders. And I wonder if you find your allies, your DesignOps allies, in your design leadership or in the design system, because that's the part that I'm struggling with the most, finding allies within the team.
It's difficult to find allies, and I won't lie, because it's a new role. And I find that the most difficult is to make people understand that design operations role is to empower your design stakeholders to focus on what really matters for them. So if someone is new to design leadership, for them, owning the budget, owning certain aspect, operational aspect, it's kind of, hey, it's a badge of honor. I earned it. Hey, I'm the leader. I should know how much we're spending. But the moment that you start talking to them and just say, hey, I mean, you're a great designer. your talent is in the ability to see the great vision for the product, the service. You can make things up, right? And just make sure that you make them feel valued, not for what they have to do on the operational side, but for the added value that they bring, and it's unique to them on the strategic element. So that's become really my strategy, listening a lot on what they are trying to do, listening on their roadmap, listening on what they want to do it's the research, it's the copy, it's the product design, it's the brand design. It's not important, but just clarifying that the positioning we have is not to take away, but complement them. So they are the what the organization do. We are the how the organization do. And you can have a fantastic what and a fantastic strategy, but if you don't understand how, that's not going to happen. So best friends with that goal. And yeah, some people get it instantly. Some people will take a little bit of time. Just show them that you're not there to steal their job. Show them that design operations is a great function as a floating function where, I always say it's all about being a floating manager. No one reports into me, but most of the time I know way more than anyone else because, hey, it's easier to tell someone. And this is how you can then nudge the design leaders. Of course, you won't disclose that someone has received a job offer, but you can just ask them, when was the last time you spoke to them? And then they go. So I don't know if this answers your question or no, or it raises even more questions.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
We have a question in the chat. Alex, do you want to open your microphone?
If you can read for me, Alex.
Okay, yes.
I have that terrible flu and I'm...
Okay, don't worry. Is it difficult enough to have a design team that proves to be vital for the results of the companies? How have you lived this experience of now introducing DesignOps to the design team?
Okay, so is it difficult enough to have a design team that proves the vital results of the companies? How do you? Oh, simply because that's exactly where you come into play. Designers and design leaders are great with a strategy, but I hardly find any great design leaders that had a good analytical mindset to go back and write down metrics and tell them, so basically this task adds to this milestone, that adds to this project, that adds to this initiative, that adds to this OKR, company OKR. I mean, oddly enough, everywhere I've been, that's been part of my task because no one is capable of doing it. And because a lot of designers don't speak the business language, they speak a different language. It's not wrong, it's just different. And business stakeholders talk and speak a different language. So DesignOps is able to get attention and traction because it's a translator. It's capable, we should be able to equally speak both languages and translate the great idea, I don't know, let's revolutionize the product into business metrics and also show how design just to be tangible. In one company, I had a massive Airtable base where we started linking company OKRs, initiative, projects, and then we set some metrics. Some of these were customer obsession, which meant we were tracking every single touch point with the user with a score system I don't bother you with. But the whole idea was we were able to show a correlation between the empathy and the focus on research and the PRS, product recommendation score, or NPS of the experiences we were able to do. Now, it takes time, it takes trust, but this is what we should do. And even on something a little bit shorter, the moment that you are able to show that you saved let's say 20% of the team's time. That 20% of time can be reinvested in innovation. And the moment that that time is invested in innovation, what is called ambidexterity, that's when you can start seeing perhaps new ideas. And this is how innovation happens in the organization. And this is how DesignOps is part of that revolution. That's the pirate spirit I was mentioning at the beginning. You don't go there and you don't kill everyone. You just play with the cards you've been given, and you steer the organization and the team by showing that, hey, there's value in here. We just saved 20% of the time. What do we do with that 20% of the time? And how do we invest it? So it's a challenge. You have to be bold to set the metrics and tell that you're going to change, and make sure the metrics, and we will get there quite shortly, that makes sense to the business. They need to talk to the business. So you need to know exactly the company strategy and what matters high to the C-level.
Great. We have another questions about metrics, but I think in the next slides, some of that question will be solved. So if you want, we can continue now.
Okay. So should we move on? And if I don't answer your questions, feel free to tell me. I mean, so just for clarity. So let's go with pillars. So, you know, design operations, we have seen who does it serve and what are the domains and the areas. And if you go to the next slides, we know that efficiency is quite important when it comes to a team, because, hey, again, 60% of people's time is spent on everything but what they've been hired to do. So they maybe do admin tasks, they may be doing a lot of other things, not relevant. So one very important question that I always suggest design operations people to ask is, how much time is your team really spending doing design work, doing what they've been hired for? And that should be kind of one of those leading questions that leads us to start thinking about our team efficiencies or efficacy. Because next slide, there are two types of metrics that I like to look at. Oh, okay. I thought I know them by heart. Efficiency, when we start thinking about efficiency, is not qualitative. Now, I mentioned before that we need to work on metrics and OKRs and KPIs. And there's nothing worse than a qualitative KPI. A KPI that says we do things better means nothing. It means nothing to the business. It means nothing to anyone. And I learned the hard way that unless I'm capable of telling a number, a percentage, a ratio, something, no one will listen to me. I'm not a good storyteller when it comes to sell. And also the business doesn't talk like that. That's a qualitative language that comes from a lot of design thinking. So we can improve things, but we need to use numbers. So efficiency is always quantifiable. It's not an adjective, it's a number, it's a measurement. And it comes in two shapes, which is being efficient and being efficacy. Efficient. Well, there are two metrics, sorry. Efficacy and efficiency. And I think it's the next slide, right? Yes. So they may seem very similar, but they are not. So efficacy is about doing the right things. It's about focusing on behaviors, because you may have the best tools and processes, but if people are not following it, guess what? You're back to square one. And and it means we look at how teams engage, we look at how teams utilize tools, how much empathy they drive, how much research they do, how many learning loops they do. It's all about understanding what are people doing and making sure they do the right things in the right order. Efficiency, it's about doing things in the right way. I mean, you can do interviews in a zillion ways, but there are ways that actually are made to be efficient and streamlined and optimized. And there are ways where you spend more energy in trying to do something than in achieving the result. And the focus on efficiency is processes. Now, there are always a little bit of confusion, and I've seen a lot of design operations professional not making this distinction. I find this distinction very helpful, especially when you talk to stakeholders, because the metrics are different and the initiatives are different. Creating a new process, it's easy. I mean, you draw your flow and you set up your tools and you streamline the templates and off you go. So doing things in the right way, it's not that difficult, right? But our job is to make sure that we change the behavior. This is why design operations is a lot about change management. It's a lot about transformation. This is why, for me, design operation is a transformational element, because even if you have the best process in the world that on paper delivers amazing results, another thing, it's a totally different skill set and approach to make sure that people are doing it in the way that you designed it and in a way that actually delivers metrics. And those are very different metrics that needs to be looked at. And these two approaches need to go hand in hand. And just now I'm setting up a whole intake process to assess how the teams are getting the briefs, project briefs, how the briefs get translated into priorities, how we assess the resources, and how we allocate resources and prioritize, and then how we review on a monthly basis, etc. Believe it, on paper, it's fantastic. Then you start implementing and you know that if it took you a month to come up with the process, it will took you 6 times as much, 6 months, to make sure you bring everyone on board. And it's all about this. So doing the right thing and doing the things right always go hand in hand. Otherwise, you will solve from one side but not on the other. And all the efficiencies that in waste, because we are talking about waste in this case, it's a term that comes from project management and from Six Sigma, Lean Sigma. It's all the ways that we create, and it's all invisible. It's all about a lot of issues, and it should be the next slide, a lot of issues that are not palpable and tangible, but they are pervasive in the organization. They are there, we just don't look at them, we pretend not to see them. So think about different teams working in different ways. So perhaps someone uses a free tool that it's not secure, and then they need to do some play around to convert the files or something. Teams don't work well, marketing hits design, design hits marketing. It's always the same story for some reason. The tools are not right, there's no support, or there's no knowledge sharing. And all these kind of things you can think of, they all impact long hours, life-work balance, happiness. It causes delays when it comes to deliver. The quality of the work may be impacted because people are working so long hours or so poorly that at the end of the day, before you notice, one tiny aspect is kind of spiraling and creating inconsistencies and waste everywhere. So I think it's the next slide, because as I mentioned, design is very, very cross-functional as a team and as a function. So if we are not able to tackle the efficiencies and the efficacies of our own team, the risk is we will generate waste. We may inherit waste. I'm not saying we are the source of all the waste, but if we can't identify and solve, we will be just part of a leak of time, money, resources, whatever you want. So this is why it becomes a critical element for design operations to start talking system thinking. If designers need to talk design thinking, design operations need to talk both design thinking, system thinking, and I think lean UX, lean startup is another topic, but for another time, because if you're not familiar with system thinking is all about looking at organizations or entities as the intersection and the combination of a lot of elements and systems that are combined to generate value and to cooperate to work. So basically you could see human and non-human elements, and all these components are basically connected to work together. To simplify even more, a team is made by people. Every team is part of a business unit. A business unit makes an organization. And probably the next slide should have a kind of visualization on how things are organized. So you see the organization, which is a system. You see the different elements, the tools, the processes, the individuals, the team, the sub-teams, and there are so many crosses. So we need to be familiar with this system because it's a domino effect. If we do something right, if we improve how design works with engineering, product, or marketing, we generate efficiencies also for them. So they will be less stressed out because deadlines are not met or because there are issues. So when we start generating efficiencies and we start proving it, it becomes spiraling in a positive direction. If we pretend not to see, it spirals on the opposite direction. So our role is to get familiar with what are the efficiencies and the inefficiencies of our team, our structure, to be able to apply a systemic lens and start looking at, hey, you know what, if I do this, I can help other teams. And this, to go back to in my question, helps you to get allies, because you will be able to sell your work to your cross-functional partners, because you're telling them, hey, you know what, I totally get that design is not doing well, I don't know, the intake, the brief process. This is why I'm working so that we will have more clarity and you won't have delays next time you come to us, because we will have a better process. It's all about selling the value and the efficiency of what we do for the design team to the system. Does it make sense? If yes, we can go to the next slide.
Yes, totally sense.
Okay, so let's go into the meat of the conversation now. I keep saying we need to get to know the efficiencies, the efficacies, the waste, what are we doing well. And this is the first time that I'm sharing the following slide, because this is basically my roadmap. This is a slide that I don't share in presentation, but I thought why not? I mean, it's not secret. I always talk about it. So it's a 4-step process. So there's an inside out view. So what is happening in the team? How are the team working? So I run surveys and I run interviews, which is probably something you all do. So I don't pretend this to be a secret sauce. But trying to look at what is happening, what are the tools, how are people working, how people are working with their teams, and also making sure they are kind of one-to-ones to probe. So survey tells you the what, doesn't tell you the why. Making sure there's a good understanding of the team, the organization, possibly even the skills to see actually how mature the teams are. And then I do the opposite, outside in. So I start looking at, hey, what is the organization's experience with design? I'm not only interested in what design tells me about how they experience being designers. I want to understand how marketing product are experiencing working with design, because the truth is always somewhere in the middle. So we need to make sure we have input. Again, this is a great way to get allies, because people will see us as someone that it's not trying to impose. It's someone that is trying to help, empower, and go. And then I do a lot of analysis on tools and analytics. So remember, efficacy, behaviors. You will, I don't know if it only happens to me, but at times I have people telling me, oh no, you can't take away the tool. I will die without it. And then you go and check the analytics and you realize that that person hadn't used the tool for 6 months. So you can candidly go back with the screenshot and ask, nothing happened to you in 6 months. You haven't used it. Tell me more why you want to use it. And this is where you will be making all the savings. And exactly the fourth point is a thorough assessment of the budget. Think about yourself as the COO of the design org, because that's what you will be doing. That's what we should be doing. Design operations is not about program management. It's about setting strategy and the vision to empower the design organization to execute the strategy and the vision. So after that, what I do, and I shared with you, I think in the next slide, is roadmap and goals. So this is how it looks like. Just to give you very candidly, this is real decks from past work. So we had cross-functional collaboration issues, surprise, surprise. So, okay, so what are the tasks? What are the metrics? What is the business impact that we want to achieve? And this is the language and the document type and the information that I share with cross-functional stakeholders and higher stakeholders to get buy-in, to get budget, to get approval, and to get everyone's, yes, go ahead, and let's just do it. And exactly that, how do I do it? I mean, it's because the question you may have, and if you don't have it, I ask myself the question, how on earth do you come up with metrics? Because, hey, it's not so intuitive for everyone, and I get it. So it's all about the triangles and a combination of triangles. Remember, I started saying we have 3 types of stakeholders. We have the B, the business, the DL, the design leader, and the DT, the design team. And then what are the things that really matter when it comes to business? I'm pretty sure you've heard of the iron triangle: quality, cost, time, cost or resource, depending. Perfect. So you start looking at every problem and from the stakeholders' point of view, and saying, okay, if the team is working long hours, what is the impact on the quality of the work they deliver and on the resources? And if the quality of the work the design team delivers is low, what is the impact on the business and the design leader? And then you start connecting all the dots until you literally play scenarios and you start just seeing, oh, I didn't realize that if the quality is low, and this is one of the critical metrics for the business, and we delay the delivery of whatever it is, the business impact is in missed opportunity, a cost compared to 20%. Don't be afraid of making up numbers. It's an estimate, it's a guesstimate, it's a goal. Of course, never overpromise something that it's not achievable. Solving all problems, 100% of the problems in 6 months, it's not credible. But solving 20% incremental is perfectly credible, and sometimes you will get a 30%. So, but that's how it should be playing. And this is really my way of creating metrics. Look at the stakeholder, look at one problem per time. I don't know, the team doesn't have tools. So DT on T, sorry, on C, which is cost and resource. What does it mean then for the quality of the outcome? What does it mean on the time? And how does the increased time affect? And you just start playing and measuring and asking questions and getting everything in. And I pause here.
It's very interesting, Pat, but I think it's really complicated to implement all of this. It's a huge thing to do in the team. So I think we must have patience to do this, right?
Exactly. I mean, it takes time. And what you always have to make clear is we are doing transformation. We are not doing, I don't know, we're not writing a book. We are transforming people's behavior and organizational procedures, which means it takes time. So don't expect results overnight. Analysis is critical. I mean, my motto is go slow to go fast, because if you don't have a clear strategy in mind, you start running, and before you realize you run, but in the wrong direction because you're solving the wrong problems. So I had a manager some times ago, which I absolutely adore. And she was, for the first 3 months, she was telling me, I mean, you haven't delivered anything. I haven't seen anything. And I was telling her, I can't deliver anything until I don't have the clarity. I don't have a roadmap. I have a vision and the priorities, and I don't get the buy-in from the team. And once I showed her all the artifacts and all the analysis and all the roadmap, etc., that's when she totally understood that, yeah, she identified the problems, but she was not able to articulate the problems, the impact on all this level, on the business, design team, design leader, quality, time, and cost and resource. So it takes time, but it's time you spend well, because it will give credibility to your work. And it's all about running this assessment and spending time and trying to quantify as much as possible. And another thing, we are not launching a rocket in the space. So even if our metrics are directional, which is one of my favorite words, it's okay. We are, I mean, it doesn't change if it's a 10% or 15% or 20%. It's in the low end, right? So we know that we can bring whatever it is, I don't know, engagement with the team up to 30%. 40%, whatever it is, but we need to have a number which is an indication of roughly where we are, and that's good enough. We're not scientists in the most strict term. We deal with humans. We are in a way applying social science, and we just need to make sure we understand the problem well enough to attach to a problem a baseline measurement and metrics. And that's the point where we can sell the problem, go for the solution, work on hypotheses, and start driving. And I have a couple of case studies to show how that works.
Great. So I don't know if we can continue, or for example, we have 2 questions, one from Carlos Martinez and one from Andrea. And Andrea, if you want. It's about community, how to build that sense of community that you mentioned. It's related with the different kind of culture that the design team has beside of that is really different from the rest of the company, and how can we build that sense of community.
So you need to measure and understand what is missing in the community. So if you are saying, okay, we need to build a sense of community, what are the ingredients of the community? How would you measure a sense of community? Would you measure it by physical face-to-face engagement? Would you measure it about how people feel confident and at ease in talking to other people about work? in talking to people about personal stuff. It's about how people are feeling confident to fail. So asking advice and showing that they didn't do or didn't understand the problem. So the first thing in that case is set up some kind of goals and metrics and domains that you think would represent the ideal community. So, I mean, I don't hide. I search a lot. Every time I have a new topic, I say, okay, I'm not the first one and I won't be the last one to solve for this problem. So community, okay. What are the dimension and definition of community? Write them down, do your field, your research, and then start setting up a survey. And hey, from 1 to 10, how confident are you in asking for help? Oh, the average is 3.3. So, okay, we need to start thinking about strategies and way where we create a safe to fail space, because that's an issue. So you look at psychological safety, you look at how you make people glue. And if you're still not fully convinced, there are tools that you can use. There's a tool that it's called Okay. Let me write it down in the chat. Where is the chat? Oh, yeah. Okay. It's based on the competing value framework, which is an amazing framework that's been utilized from the late 80s, early 90s, and it's utilized to assess company culture. Now, nothing prevents you from doing the same assessment, which are 6 questions, where you have to distribute 100 points. And there are very generic questions about how do you feel about the hierarchies, how do you feel about the teams, and you just do these 6 questions twice. The second time is your ideal state, and that will help you to kind of see where you have to prioritize your effort and what are the expectations people have. So there are a lot of tools, and just be creative and just make sure you create your own baseline and your own interpretation of community, and you see what you can measure and find a way to measure it.
Great, thanks. But do you think we can continue and then we hope go for the next questions?
Okay, yeah, so let's go with the efficiency. So, okay, so we said we have efficacy, we have efficiency, and I hope I'm saying something that will resonate with all of you. So did it ever happen to you that your team was coming to you saying, oh, I can't cope with this, long hours, too much to do, too much work, I'm fed up? These are problems or symptoms. Because if you start scratching the surface, you will find out that these things are symptoms. These are not the problems. Long hours are not a problem. Those are the symptoms that something is wrong in the way the organization and you are operating. So when I started scratching the surface in this case, next slide, I kind of realized that the real problem was not long hours. The real problem was that we had a massive waste when it came to recruiting and sourcing research participants. Meaning that I started looking at how the design team was working. Where were they spending their time? What were the non-design related tasks, that 60% we talked about at the beginning, that they were putting their time in? So it came out that was sourcing participants and designers. I mean, at that time I was managing 7 teams across the globe and I had roughly 70, 80 designers. It came out that to recruit 5-6 participants for a sprint testing, rapid testing, just to get, go, no go, a designer would spend roughly 2 to 2.5 working days in sourcing the participants, scheduling, calling them in, rescheduling, and paying the incentive, giving them direction where they got lost. You get the whole thing. And of course, if you think that every month has roughly 2 sprints, that means that a designer, or basically there was the need for an extra working week for designer per sprint, which added up when you start doing the math on how many squads you have, how many sprints you have, how many users you have, and you do the math in cost and in time, the costs were roughly $500,000 or something like that, because you do the math and then you go to the business and say, hey, have you noticed that actually we are wasting time and designers are not happy, because then the additional cost is people leaving. So once you have identified the problem, you start thinking about what is the impact, what are the things that actually you need to look at, and should be probably in the next slide, that you need to look at in terms of what is happening. So how are these 5 days per squad per month impacting the ways of working? So long hours. Again, think about the design team. So you have long hours, you have limited time for reviews, you maybe compromise life-work balance, you work long hours, so the quality of the work goes down. And remember when I said in system thinking, it's a spiraling of efficiencies or inefficiencies. If you work long hours, the quality of your attention span goes down, which means the quality of your work will go down, which means you will have to do some rework because you will get feedback, which will cause even longer and long hours, and so forth. So it all goes in that direction. And so exactly, we calculated the equivalent was 1.5 full-time employees. And the cost for recruiting was extremely high, up to $360 per participant. And I don't bother you with all the creative ways people got around with finding participants that were everything but best practices or safe or secure from a privacy and legal point of view. So, you know, things like that I'm sure your team never did, talking to the same pool of users over and over and over because, hey, they're just available in an email, and or just talking to 1 or 2 and not the 4 or 5 best practices just because, hey, I have no time, sharing list of participants, all these kind of things that actually add risk to the business. So when you think about metrics, you also start thinking, oh, what does it mean? What would the cost be? If in Europe we have this thing called GDPR, we did a GDPR breach because we contact people that change their preference, and you start adding metrics, etc. And the way of working is, okay, we understood the problem, but it's not long hours, it's we don't have anyone taking care of the recruiting process. We understood the impact and we quantified the impact to get buy-in from the business. So you see in this slide, the first part is the impact on the design team, the other is on the business. And the design leader is somewhere in between, because if they don't get what we can provide them with, they have also a problem, even more than operations in a way. So we start working on a hypothesis. I love lean startup. I mean, I can't say how much I think lean startup is the best approach and mindset when it comes to trying new things. So we started working on quantifying hypotheses. So if we bring in someone that can do this job for us, and we can outsource the whole process of getting someone, I think it's the next slide, we could basically save, I don't know what are the number, 90% of the time. So a designer can waste only 1 day per month rather than 5, which is reasonable. There's always some waste baked in even the best process. And then you start also thinking, okay, we reduce the lead time to bring people in. We reduce the cost, we increase the number of people and the quality of people the design teams are engaging with, so that also it will impact the quality of the feedback, the quality of the work, and business metrics. So we started with an experiment. I brought in someone in the London office, and for 9 months, we set up an end-to-end process, and we created this new function whose role was to serve the business and find people, prospect existing customers. So there were a lot of things to do in setting up the end-to-end internal process with analytics, in making sure we could work within all the legal constraints, creating partnership with marketplaces and vendors, creating processes, and basically setting up what could this service look like and start measuring the impact. So I think it's the next slide. And making sure exactly having the SLAs rolling out and setting the metrics. So the lead time, the cost, how much time did we save for the designers? And actually the metrics and the results were quite chuffing, because these became from one 9 months experiment, a whole program, a global program. So we rolled it out over 18 months to 7 global regions. And I think it's the next line with all the metrics. So we were able to gain the equivalent of 4.5 full-time employees in 2 years. In the first year, we gained back 1.5. And when the full service was operationalized globally, it was like having 4 designers, extra designers, the time the designers could spend in innovation, in other projects, in something else. We increase the number of participants that people talk by 300%, because if talking to people, it's something that it's easy, it becomes a natural way of operating. This is when I say our best practices baked in the end-to-end process. Having a service that takes away the pain of talking and finding participants for testing and research increase the demand. Because before it was a trade-off between, oh, I should really talk to someone, but I have no time. I can't be bothered. I have a deadline. It's not my job finding recruitment. The cost went down significantly, and also team health went up because the churn was lower, the morale was higher, and we reduced time to do research. So setting up the process, so this is the efficacy, was easy. Getting people to buy in was even easier. The hard bit was identifying the problem from the narrative that people tells you. Oh, I work long hours. Tell me more. And if you identify the problem right, you can drive this and get instant buy-in because the benefits are immediate. And this is one type of project. And then we have the other type, when we need to modify behaviors that are not such a clear pain. I mean, this is super clear. Everyone was struggling with research, everyone had issues. But what if the problem is a little bit more subtle and you don't really know what it is? Again, story. I mean, I've heard that in every company, product managers don't understand us. They don't trust design thinking, and no matter how great our work and research is, they still decide to do something else because they don't listen to us. So you have this Cinderella syndrome of designers not being listened to, not being able to influence decisions, not being able to get the voice of the user heard enough, not being able to influence. And that's true. But the real problem is not that we are not heard. The real problem is that designers are not able to articulate the problem properly and to speak the business language. So the real problem, which is the next slide, is literally the fact that although designers are fantastic when it comes to all the design thinking and qualitative and empathy, their decisions are being made with data. So what was happening in the room was A designer coming with a persona saying, oh, our key persona really loves this part of the experience. And then a bored PM looking at them saying, well, we're going to change it because it's not working. How is that possible? Well, in analytics, they see something happening. They see a user behavior that it's real life, it's happening, it's influenced by a lot of things that the fantastic persona has not necessarily visibility of. So this clash is basically the fact that as much as I love design thinking, I think that design thinking is missing the opportunity to look at the user in a more systemic way by also considering not only the empathy, but the behaviors that we are able to track. Of course, design thinking came about 20, 30 years ago. Analytics was not as developed as today, but I bet that if Martin would like to do design thinking too, he would hopefully add design-driven, data-driven design, because this is what is missing today, to have designers speaking and talking the business language. The business talks numbers, the business talks analytics, and designer talk empathy. Both are needed, but unless design gets the ability to talk numbers and data, they will be always seen like the extreme user-centric that have no enough data, just qualitative, just empathy. And this is how we got to the point of creating this kind of experiment, where we said we need to turn T-shaped designers into pie-shaped designers. What does it mean? Think about a T-shaped designer is a designer that uses empathy in design thinking. It's very focused on delivery, executes on briefs, delivers for the team, and it's assessed and evaluated on the quality of the outcome, how good the experience is and the design is. The pie-shaped, it's the T-shaped plus analytics, behavioral data, plus decisions that are made not on empathy, but on a range of data, on triangulation. They discuss with their partners, they don't execute briefs, they are part of the decision, and they are assessed on impact, not on the execution, not on what they deliver. Now you totally understand how more difficult it is to convince people that they need to become data-driven designers, because, well, in their mind, it's only PMs not loving them. This is how we needed to start with some hypotheses and start saying, okay, how can we do this? And the idea was to, okay, the hypothesis is, if we are really able to get designers to talk data, we can help design and product teams to work closer together and to be more engaged and to be more aligned and speak the same language, basically. So all we needed to do was to train 70 designers to talk analytics. And of course, this needed a little bit more buy-in, because it's not something I can do by myself if I don't have all the design leadership approval, because you can't teach people, or that's my hypothesis, in a week. You need constant iterative banging on their head. So we created the XD Academy, which was a 6-month program, 90 minutes every single week on 2 time zones. 3 weeks and a week break, just because. So 4.5 hours a month, which is not that much if you think about that. So I started looking at the analytics and started tracking what was the baseline adoption and utilization of the tools, who was using it, for which we had a number of different tools for web analytics and product analytics and crossovers. So we started looking at all the things that we can do, and we worked with the vendors, because the narrative was, hey, if I can't get my team to use your tool, I can't renew next year. So are you willing to help me? So we had an alternate of meetings with vendors and with stakeholders. and thought leadership. I think it's the next slide, to make sure that, hey, we do this. We have a variety of thought leadership and technical skills, because one thing is teaching a tool, the other is to teach the skill and the mindset. So get the buy-in from all stakeholders, making sure we had everyone attending. I mean, everyone was supposed to attend 75% of the trainings. So in 6 months, I redid the assessment, and the needle was moving. I mean, this is behavior, the needle moves way less. But hey, if I looked at the engagement with tools, it grew by 100%, 110%, and the number of queries increased by 1800%. The number of projects in analytics tool grew 70%, and people's confidence in talking analytics or using analytics and data grew by 30%. So it's a small transformation, and you see the results are slower and different, but you are changing behaviors, and this is absolutely great. And this is how you think about metrics. This is how you think and set up a project. So if I had to leave you with a few takeaways after all this, I think it's the last 4 or 5 slides. And I don't know, Alexandra, if we can just open up for question or go through very quickly, but just
of course.
Just to close up, every single team has inefficiencies. So get over it. Your team, no matter how great you are, will have efficiencies, because you're solving one and it's a system. You open up opportunities for another efficiency to happen. And unless you can quantify, you haven't framed your problem well enough. So numbers, because that's what will get you buy-in from the stakeholders and from the teams and from everyone. And it's a team effort. So you will have to work with all your cross-functional stakeholders, because your impact is well beyond the design team, it's organizational. And I stop here because I want to make sure, I spoke a lot, but I want to make sure we have all the time for questions, and you will have the slides. I'm pretty sure Alexandra will share it with you.
Yeah, of course. Carlos, do you want to share a little bit about what you were writing in the chat?
Yes, thank you. Well, actually, I have so many questions. I mean, I'm new on DesignOps, and thank you very much for your talk, your keynote presentation. It was really nice. I am suffering, you know, at my current job. We have a very strong product team, and I'm just for the last 2 months, I have been building up this design team. So there are some frictions, of course. Probably many of people here are aware of them. And sometimes I was commenting on a story that just recently happened, actually recently yesterday happened. The product team was so proud because they were sharing, oh, we have this new data on this new product and that we just launched last week, and we didn't find any product market fit because nobody is giving us their contact info, because the new product was a new product that was put on our website, and you click on it and a survey will pop up, and then, oh, please share your data, blah, blah, blah. But the button only reads legal. And when you click on it, it only says, if you want some legal advice, please share your data. Here's the form, and that's it. And I was looking at this data suspiciously yesterday, and I was like thinking, okay, yeah, you have data, but the data doesn't mean anything because your value proposition on this product doesn't exist. You're not letting people or users or clients know what is the product about. And why would I give you my data if there's nothing on your survey that tells me or explains me what's your product going to do? So yeah, I mean, I actually wrote on the chat that I support data, of course, but sometimes data in organizations can be misleading, right? Because the CEO can see the product team saying, oh, we have this data and nobody's clicking on it, so we're not finding any product market fit. And I didn't say anything because I'm trying to build bridges with product team, and I wouldn't want to expose that type of how you say, well, like how they fake having real data to make their point. But I mean, it's something that as a designer from my class side, is like, but you don't have any value propositions. Like, how do you expect people to register, right? So I was only sharing this anecdote that just happened yesterday when I was in that part of the data part. Yeah, so that's it.
Yeah, but you know what? I mean, you are touching a really good point. And it's very easy to manipulate data when no one else speaks data in the organization. So the moment that you start implementing everyone in the design team using data and analytics tool the same way, it means that they can cross-check and have an informed opinion and challenge in the right way. And this is the power of data. This is the power of collaboration and constructive collaboration. It's not about finger pointing. It's about, have you thought about, and challenging things in the right way. But as long as very few people understand data and are familiar with data analytics, etc., it becomes easy to manipulate data and easy to create fake stories. So the more you're able to empower your teams to look at this and challenge in the right way, the more value everyone will get in the organization.
I think a key word in here is empowering the team.
Yes, exactly.
Patrizia, I have another question, is that for me, it has been a little bit difficult because I don't know where to find the data and how to measure that, because I know that it's the simple way is to run a survey to the team to know how are they feeling and how engaged they are and topics like that. But it's like for them filling another survey, it's complicated, or they are not comfortable with that. So what are the other ways to have more data from the team?
Okay, so one question, because I'm curious why a survey is difficult. How many surveys did you run? Oh.
I think the problem is that me and the DesignOps team need some kind of information, but for example, the creative directors need another kind of information around the reporting about the projects the team are. And we as DesignOps need to know more about the mood and the NPS and anything and something like that. And there is another survey from the company, the organization in general. So I'm just talking about 3 different forms or 3 different ways of collecting data. So I think for designers, it's like difficult for us to keep answering more and more forms.
Okay, because this is the most common scenario. Every organization has a zillion of surveys. Now, every time I join and I start working with a team, I make a solemn promise. I will pester you twice a year with a survey. It will be long and boring, but it will be the single most impactful survey you will be answering for a very simple reason. Accountability and transparency. I don't know your organization. I would say a good 80% of the organization I've been, whatever, HR, stakeholders, people team, whoever did a survey, I never saw the results. And I've never seen an action implemented. So my promise and what I do is I spend time. It will take me 3 months to analyze the data, come up with metrics, come up with everything, but I will play it back and say, guys, this is what I've learned. This is what for me is priority 1, 2, 3. Do you agree with me? If not, I'm happy to go back to the data. I'm happy to rethink my strategy, because if I'm not working on the right thing, I need to know it before. And I also have a quarterly DesignOps review. What does it mean? Every quarter, it could be a newsletter, a meeting. Every organization is different what they prefer. I write a detailed report of what has happened, how did the roadmap implementation went, what were the changes to the roadmap, what were the results achieved, full transparency, and just saying this hasn't been achieved for X, Y reason. So when the people start seeing that you are actually, yes, you are asking a survey, but you are giving back, you are engaging with them, they will give up the time. The biggest error is running a survey and not being accountable, not sharing back, not bringing everyone on the journey. And personally, I find that having a quarterly DesignOps review really helps to show that they invested their time, they didn't give away the time. And I'm not sure which data are you looking at the moment. I mean, surveys are a good way because you can create metrics, as we discussed many times. I mean, you don't have to be scientific from 1 to 100. You know, you can have a diet. I love design, or I love copy. Where are you to understand? I'm just making up whatever it is, but the whole idea is you can create your baseline. What is the percentage of work you spend in rework? It's not scientific. I told you we're not launching a skyrocket, but it gives you an idea of the perception. And if you do something and people's perception and probably also the facts change, you will know that that's what you did. So your question needs to be framed. I mean, in the past 2 companies, the percentage of rework was over 50%. Is it true? Is it not? It's important, but it's also important how people perceive, how they spend their time and how they feel. And this is how we need to work on behaviors, metrics. They all help. But yeah, or you can always do a workshop and try to figure out how to do it. I mean, it's not in the method, it's more having clear what is the problem and what are the metrics that you want to learn and solve.
Yeah, great advice. Thank you, Patrizia. I don't know if anyone has another question just to finish our event.
And in any case, you can always reach out to me on well, probably LinkedIn, is where you can find me more frequently. And this conversation, I hope it's just the beginning, because I'm keen to keep talking and learning from you and with you. So really, if you go finish your day today and something comes to mind, just drop me an email.
Yeah, I hope we this is a start for us to like start talking about metrics in design teams and DesignOps. So I hope we can start developing content in Spanish about this topic. So thank you very much, Patrizia, for your time, your knowledge. We are going to share this recording through our YouTube channel. So I know more people is going to hear this talk that you have given to us. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Alexandra, for organizing, and for you all. I mean, giving up some time on your Saturday. I mean, I truly appreciate that, and hope there was at least something good and a good learning that you will be able to put in practice soon. And let's keep talking.
Thank you. Yeah, I think great takeaways to develop and implement with our teams. Thank you to everyone to participate. Les robamos 1h30 de su sábado, así que muchas gracias por participar y estar aquí.
Totally worth it. Thank you very much.
Nos vemos en la próxima.
Muchas gracias, Alejandra. Mucho gusto a todos. Bye bye. Buen sábado.
Muchas gracias.
Bye bye. Thanks.